So good afternoon, everybody. We are here with Amy Weintraub. I'm so delighted. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is so awesome that you are with us. I'm so looking forward to our 30 minutes together. Amy is really quite amazing. Such a journey, which she's going to share with us. An author of, well, 2 books already published, one on the way in September. Phenomenal yoga therapist, such a contribution to the world of trauma, depression, her beautiful books, which we will get to in a little while. But I really wanted to welcome you and thank you so much for being here. It's awesome.
Thank you, Abby and Abaya. It's so wonderful to be with you and to join other people like Indu and Nischala and Jenny Lee. It's really an honor to be in such good company with you.
That's awesome. Thank you. So from producer to yoga, how was that move? What is your journey here?
Depression.
Okay.
I was a depressed, fairly successful, award-winning television producer, I shouldn't say this, but film documentary. We were actually shooting film, not video, back in the day. Right. And won a lot of awards, extreme depression. I was functioning, but there had been trauma in my life that I was masking by being a workaholic, by living the lifestyle that was not healthy at all. I won't go into details, but an unhealthy lifestyle. And then I stopped television, started writing fiction, but was still very depressed. And I happened on a catalog for Kripalu one day and realized it was only 3 hours away. And I said, it's time to go find out about this yoga. And that was back in the late 80s. And I went to Kripalu and it was transformational for me. We were on little pink blankets. We didn't have yoga mats, but it was the practice that combined not only asana, but pranayama and meditation and chanting that really touched me deeply and changed my life. I brought home, at that time where I lived in Newport, Rhode Island, there were no yoga teachers. So I brought home not even like cassette tapes of yogis and practiced and then went back to Kripalu frequently after that. And eventually in the early 90s, 91, I became a Kripalu yoga teacher. And my life changed. I went to as many people do, to take my first yoga teacher training to deepen my own practice. Right. And what happened was I was so passionate about the way in which a daily practice had changed my life that I really wanted to share it. And I began writing articles for Yoga Journal and teaching in my community. And I was actually one of the first yoga teachers in the Kripalu community to be asked to come and serve and offer yoga and meditation at Kripalu when it was still a vowed community, before it sort of blew up and it was no longer a vowed community. But so yoga so transformed my life that I just became passionate about collaborating with researchers, collaborating with other writers to really understand the dynamics of what I was doing that had made such a difference in my life. And, one of the book chapters that I contributed to lately through, with Kelly Birch and Heather Mason's book, Yoga Therapy for Mental Health, was on depression. And I worked with a German researcher who's published more than 160 studies. And one of the things that I was most impressed by was that in his survey research, that pranayama was such a key to mood. And that's what I had been finding myself. And so, developed organically, almost through Life Force Yoga as a sort of a collection of tools that specifically address mood, that anyone can do, that are not necessarily, don't even require a yoga mat. So they're very adaptable in all kinds of yoga therapy settings, non-yoga settings, hospital settings, clinical settings, because they use the practices of yoga, but they make them very accessible and sort of dose them. So that was sort of my journey. It was my own depression, my own trauma history that led me to love yoga, to feel transformed by it, and to want to share it with others. And that's where, yoga for depression came from. And
right. For the listeners, I was fortunate enough to take a yoga therapy course. It was the very first time they'd offered it through the Soul of Yoga in Encinitas, California. And one of the modules was Yoga for Depression with Amy Weintraub. And it was absolutely, it was life altering. It was really, really beautiful. And as you pointed out, it was integrated into almost every kind of possible setting that you could possibly have. And that's what I appreciated about it so much. And then, as you mentioned, in 2003, I believe Yoga for Depression was published. And then that was followed up in 2012 by Yoga Skills for Therapists. You want to talk a little bit about those books?
Yeah, this book was, it was it's a lot of my story and a lot of my students' stories and my colleagues' stories. So, and the research that was available at the time, which wasn't much. No. It really wasn't. This was the book actually that sort of rocked the boat about, let's do some more research. I can't tell you how many people I met, like at Kripalu and elsewhere, who said, I read that book, and that's what brought me to the yoga mat. I met a man in the line at Kripalu when I was teaching there, who said, what are you here for? He's sort of chatting me up. And I said, well, I just finished teaching a workshop on yoga and depression. He said, are you Amy Weintraub? And I said, yes. And he said, I gave my book to my daughter, your book to my daughter when she was coming out of the hospital. She had been severely depressed, and I'm here because it changed her life. I'm here because she just graduated from her yoga teacher training. And it just, those kinds of stories is why we do what we do. It's not that the book itself is the healing element. It's that it motivates people to find their own way, to try yoga. There are practices in here, but it's really about the motivation, the research that was available at the time. And then the next book, that was Broadway Books Random House. And the next book, W.W. Norton came to me and asked me to write a book for therapists, psychotherapists. I said, well, I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm trained in internal family systems therapy because I love it, but I'm not a psychotherapist. They said, we want you. We want your perspective. So, and I had trained so many psychotherapists in Life Force Yoga that a lot of their, not only my experiences as a yoga therapist, but their experiences as psychotherapists are in this book. So it's kind of a manual of practices that, and then more up-to-date research. Probably the most up-to-date research is in that chapter I was mentioning in Kelly Birch's and Heather Mason's book, where Holger Kramer and I wrote the chapter on depression. But we can stay current by just going to PubMed and seeing. But now there's studies like all the time. So many people are practice yoga and then they're in their graduate programs, and so they want to do their graduate work on yoga therapy. So there have been actually a couple of studies, but the studies are important. We need evidence-based yoga. We need to make it accessible so folks who would not ordinarily roll out a yoga mat can benefit from these practices, which are so transformational. But I kind of don't want to see the spirituality. What is it that really heals us taken out by an over medicalization of yoga? We do it for treatment here, like you have this, you have that, you have that. Well, the thing is, we might come to the yoga mat with bad back or headaches or whatever, and we're seeking, because we've read the research that we hear that yoga might help us. We come for those reasons, but there's a body, mind, spirit, heart connection. And it is really even if we come for something like a bad back, there's a connection to our emotional bodies. And that's why when we start practicing yoga, often tears arise. Some people feel like, well, I'm getting worse. It's because the only way out is through. We are cleansing the vrittis in the mind, the mind's tensions. We're cleansing the samskaras, and we're releasing. And often there's an emotional flow that happens, and we go through that. We've all been through it. I think when I ask people, when I'm teaching, I say, how many people practice yoga regularly? And if it's a training, then everybody raises their hand. Put your hand down if you've never cried on your yoga mat. It's a release, it's a letting go. And it's so important that we understand that, and that we understand that where the healing comes from is that deepest connection to, whether you call it oneness, whether you call it wholeness, whether you call it samadhi, whether you call it Atman, Brahman, or one, that deep self with a capital S. And the practices and the philosophy and the pauses in our yoga practice, so that we're not just moving, we're not just breathing, but we're taking a moment to sense into the body, because the body is always present. The mind's a time traveler. And if we can stay present through our practice, through an awareness of sensation, an awareness of breath as we practice, we have a channel, sort of a pathway into that wholeness, into that oneness, that full absorption in spirit. And that's where the true healing arises. Not from some sort of RX, do 6 pranayama here and do 4 mantras there. That's all good and that's all fine, but it's that deepest connection. And our practices and the philosophy of yoga, that we are deeply, no matter what's going on in the mind, no matter what the story, no matter what the mood is, that our practices can take us to that deeper level of connection beyond story, and teach us that we are so much more than story, so much more than our fear, our anger. The anger may be there, the fear may be there, but we are so much more than that. So that's why I practice.
Kripalu, Gal, I think you'll appreciate Michael Lee when he was on Jivamaya Yoga Talks about, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. And he was telling all of us when he was first at Kripalu, and a couple of them got together and went to see Swami Rama, I think it was, and said, we're getting really bored with the classes. It's the same postures day in, day out. And the reply was, then you're not paying attention. So, yeah, so it's really, there's so much value and I think it's why I love at this particular time of my life yin yoga, because it just helps us get in there and just be that pause and just really listen to what's going on. Krishnamurti is very clear. The chaos outside is the chaos inside. Clear the chaos inside and the chaos outside will clear. So it's all. I'd like to be able to talk about two more things. One is the integration of yoga, the spiritual aspect of yoga into yoga therapy. Because as we move forward and as we begin to expand into the more Western model of medicine, how to integrate and how to marry the two without losing that spirituality, I think is a conversation that's very, very important to have. And I'm not sure how we go about that. I know with Ayurveda, Dr. Ladd, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think I've ever heard him stand up and not say, if you take the spirituality out of the science of Ayurveda, you have a dead science. So it's the same with yoga. So it's really, how can we, as teachers and as students, really, really assure that spirituality stays there as a very deep and important key, in my mind, component to yoga therapy.
Yeah. Well, I don't have the answer for yoga therapy in a broad sense. I can only say that as yoga therapists, yoga professionals, yoga teachers, we need to get on the mat every day, on the meditation cushion every day, and find our way to that place of wholeness, because it's from there that we can bring true healing to ourselves in a world that's chaotic and turbulent and scary. It's how do we come home to who we truly are? How do we come home to that core of love and understanding and the depths of yoga without doing our own practice? So we do that, and then we're able to open that pathway for our students. I think that's so essential, and we need to, really keep in mind, honor the lights who have come before us from Mother India, from the world we live in. Honor those lights, those yoga lights who have been on this path for a long time. And we need to not just simply think in terms of treatment or like fixing. I remember Richard Miller saying, who's a colleague, friend, teacher, all of those things, saying when we attempt to fix someone, we are fixating them in their issues. So it's really about taking the expert hat off when we're with someone, when we're serving someone, and empowering them to be the expert of their bodies through deep practice, the deep practices, not not just the fixes. So I can't speak for how that translates into the field of yoga therapy, but I would stand right next to Dr. Ladd and say the same thing. Spirituality is the key to our healing, staying present, to coming home to who we are inside, unsullied by whatever has happened to us. And you know, that spirituality, you know, in my new book, which I'm, you know, about to launch, it's in pre-order now. This is the arc. It's
outstanding.
Thank you. My new book, which is a novel, and it's full of characters and passion and fire and all of that, but it stands on the foundation of yoga philosophy, yoga lifestyle, and the journey through shame, through mistakes, certainly that both characters, the character who's in India in the 40s, who's a temple dancer, and the character who's a contemporary in the 90s and then in 2016, the working through to that place of wholeness. And through art, it's done through dance, through sacred dance, through art, that I think we come from our own perspectives. And for us, it's yoga. For some, it's that absorption in the creation of art, you know, whether you call it the collective, Jung's collective unconscious, that pathway into that divine spirit. I could not, I mean, I have an MFA from Bennington in literary fiction. And so, you know, I'm an editor, writer, I have been, and I was a depressed editor and writer for a long time. But this, unlike any other book that I have written, I've written several unpublished novels. This one felt like it was received. Parts of it just came through me. And it's been a 25-year journey of this temple dancer's life. So I felt a duty, a kind of dharmic duty, to share her voice that came through me 25 years ago. So it's set partly in India, partly in, you know, the glory of Mother India and the devastation of the Devadasi tradition, and partly in our culture now. It's actually partly set at the ashram Yogaville in 2016. So there's a lot of self-inquiry that all the characters go through in this book.
It's an awesome book. You start reading it and it's delightful. And then I don't know quite where in the book, but very, very near the beginning, you suddenly realize, oh, wait a minute. I need to pay attention here. There is a lot going on. This is awesome. And you keep reading and reading, and the depth of everything that you've taught is presented in such a beautiful and palatable and wise way. It's a gorgeous book. I recommend it thoroughly to everyone. And I honestly think you're so very much wanting to find out what happens that you may even skip a few pages, like what's going to happen, what's going to happen. And I know that everyone's going to go back and really read it that second time, kind of like our asana practice, same practice, right? Everything to really glean. And I think every time somebody picks it up, they're going to find something different inside. It's really quite beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
you know,
gigantic.
I'm, you know, I have a few people who are advanced readers, and every morning I wake up to an email from someone saying, oh my God.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I could not put this book down. And it's like, whoa. You know, that's really important to me, because I was a depressed fiction writer. And now I'm not going to say I don't have moods. but I welcome the parts of me that are moody, and I know how to sort of get myself beyond those moods. And
Oh, and
and
you understand
so
it.
this, yeah,
Yeah,
so this is like, uh,
it's a treasure.
it's, thank you.
It's a
Thank
treasure.
you.
No, it really is. It's a treasure. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous book. I recommend it highly.
Thank
Amy
you.
Weintraub website, amyweintraub.com. You'll be able to go on Amazon and get it. I think it's September 8th that you said it coming is coming.
Yeah, but it's you can pre-order it now, and I think the digital version will be out a little sooner than the hardback, which is September 8th. So you can pre-order and have it, have it very quickly. It's kind of this is the hardest part right now. I mean, writing it was the joy, and this, launching a book, especially fiction in a yoga therapy world, is
It's like giving
that's
birth or something.
yeah, yeah. And so I've gotten some wonderful comments from Stephen Cope and Michael Lee, and just people who've read it and loved it, and Nischala Joy Devi, and so many. So, and from you, Abby, thank you for
No,
saying all
no,
that you said about it.
no, just it's every word that everybody says about it is really quite accurate. It's just gorgeous.
Thank you.
So in the few minutes that we have left, during this time right now, to sort of maybe elaborate a little bit more on what you have already been saying, is there anything else you'd like to add to the fact that these times are actually kind of forcing us to go in, really forcing us to take that pause and say, wait a minute, um,
Mm-hmm.
where have I personally erred? What are the
Mm-hmm.
causes that I have personally made on this mind, this body? Um, are
Mm-hmm.
there any words that you would like to share for those that are listening that are really not seeing these times as an opportunity because of unemployment, or kids are at home, they're trying to teach them and they've got to go to work, and just the stress and uncertainty of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's hard. When I've taught, I teach in some yoga therapy programs, and um, people are struggling with real life issues, and just taking a moment or five can make a difference. Doing a simple pranayama, a prayer, a chant. Um, I I always like, I never teach or work with anyone without asking. Without asking. In fact, before we started, I used a Tara Bodhi mudra, and I said, may the wisdom and joy and compassion of our teachers flow through us, to knowing that we have everything we need inside to serve those we serve. And I don't start anything without doing that. So taking a moment, whatever it is, to just give yourself some self-care, some love, taking your right hand to your heart, even just maybe Garuda Mudra, a yamming to the heart, a little a soothing, calming mantra to the heart. Doing it doesn't take long. We can just bring our hands to the heart and say, vibrating the heart with love. And understanding that these are really challenging times. I know as a fiction reader and writer, I'm reading a lot of wonderful fiction right now. Let's see if I have anything. I'm reading, I finished this book, The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, about two women, twins, women of color. And it's a brilliant book. It's one passes as white and changes her life, and the other one doesn't, and it's about their lives and what's lost in denying one's self. And then the other one I'm reading right now, it's in my bedroom, so I can't show it, is a beautiful, so I'm trying, it's a beautiful book. It won the Booker Prize, the English Booker Prize, which is like the National Book Award in England. And it's called Girl, Woman, Other. And it's Black voices in a novel, and it's brilliant. So for me, through art, through acquaintances, friends who are people of color, listening, not trying to fix, not trying to prematurely help when I don't know what is really needed. Simply listening. Tell me what's going on for you. So that's my self-inquiry, is sort of inquiring of others. Let me know when you're ready, because right now, so many people in the Black community and are grieving, are in mourning. We don't want to rush in. We want to, from my particularly privileged white self, to try to help. It's like, tell me when you're ready what I need to do, so to serve in whatever way I can. So that's sort of where I am. And I just think we need to, through all of this inquiry for ourselves and our communities, we need to come home to who we are inside, our own core of faith and trust, which has been so severely eroded in the last few years. How do we come home to that faith and trust? We do it on the yoga mat. We do it on our meditation cushions. We do it through love, through our relationships, and through self-care. So I guess that's what I would say.
And so what you said, to serve, and that really is the bottom line. We bring ourselves to the place where we realize that we really are here to serve.
Mm-hmm.
That's gorgeous. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Just beautiful to spend this time with you. So appreciate. I can't wait to see bestseller list and maybe a movie on the way. And wouldn't that be awesome?
From your lips to God's ears.
Oh, absolutely. I could see it on the screen. It would be amazing. It would be amazing.
And
So
we'll all we'll all do mudras at the opening.
Totally.
Without masks. We'll all be vaccinated. We'll all be fine. All right.
So before we sign off, I just want to remind everybody for the rest of this month, with just these authors, Amy, Nishala, and next week, Jenny Lee. She's an award-winning author. She's also a yoga therapist and a spiritual coach. Delightful woman. Has a book that's coming out called Spark Change. It's just, it's an amazing, amazing time. And then we end the month with Acharya Shunya, who is very, very special, written just the most beautiful book. Talk about keeping the spirituality in Ayurveda. Her book in Ayurveda, I think it's called The Living Wisdom of Ayurveda, is absolutely gorgeous. And she's coming out with a new one that we'll talk about when she's online. So thank you again. I wish you well. We will be all sending you big cheers and balloons on the 8th.
Thank you.
I so appreciate you spending this time with us.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.